Welcome back. This is the second half of our newspaper review on K24 this morning. Of course, as always, love it when you're part of the conversation. You can get me on Twitter at I am Jeff Mote. Let's look at that very quickly. Alex Muhuyu saying this was politicians just playing their game. Au wakona mshahara na wakona sitting allowances. They can afford to do this. Sisi tuko na njaa. Hata mimi sina nguvu ya kutupa mawe. Okay, on that. Kiplagat Sigei, talking about the government right now. The government should be impartial in everything and should also be seen to be impartial. They need to prove that as well. Namachanja Kapoya, you've put the picture of the Kenyan MP, Nixon Korir, in the London Warden saying, what is honorable about this? It's the picture of him kicking the canister, and he goes on and on. So keep them coming in at I am Jeff Mote or K24 TV. I'm in studio, Hezbo Noela, Nordin Kagai, and we also have Dennis Thumbi talking about this. We've seen what's happened. We've seen how things can go south very fast. How do we bring it back and make sure that that doesn't happen again? Let me start with you, Hezbon, once again, because in all of this, in a couple of months' time, we ought to be having a referendum that's supposed to amend the Constitution. Is this a solution to what we've just seen yesterday?
Well, I think it's a good thing. You know, sometimes when you have some of these worst-case scenarios, you prepare adequately, you know, never to get to this point. And these are pointers that, you know, a lot of our political leaders operate within the framework of impunity. They think they can get away with anything. I mean, you cannot have a situation where political leaders are, and goons, and they're hired goons, are harassing IBC officials, are intimidating voters, are going viral with videos on social media to scare people. When we talk about voter apathy, it's not voter apathy. This is induced. These are politicians who use their phones and their people to scare voters from coming to vote. And I think what needs to happen is that this situation should be a basis upon which we are sorting our political and electoral process going forward.
Nordin, yeah. We're talking about the youth, 75.1% of this particular population, and I can see what's happening right now. So whatever happens, even with this violence moving forward, they're the ones in terms of the numbers who are most affected. How do they take this from them? Because as you can see, even the feedback we're getting, they're talking about them. They're the ones who are doing. Alex was saying he doesn't even have enough strength to throw a stone. He's hungry.
You know, the sad reality is that those members of parliament who are arrested, they were let go. But the young men who are arrested are still in custody. So you will be charged for violence and whatnot, but you are paid. So the youth, for the youth to come out of where they are, you know, sadly in Kenya, they believe in suppressing them, then you oppress them so that you use them. They can never empower you, and no one will empower you. For the youth in Kenya, they need to empower themselves because they have so many fights, but the most important fight right now for the young man is a fight for economic and political freedom, away from the shackles of these people who have kept them there. So the sad reality is that the youth need to wake up. And the most important liberation they need is that of the mind, where you realize that you are always seduced, used, and abused. Now, those who were seduced into violence, they were used, now they are abused, and they are left in custody. So what we need as a young men of this country, we need to realize that don't always go to the leader. But sadly, they have made you poor enough to use you with 200 shillings or 500 shillings. You saw during the by-election yesterday, the IBC says there should not be any printed campaign material. ODM was supplying purported masks in Matungo. The box had a name for the candidate and the seat is going for. Inside that so-called box for the mask were 50 shillings. So imagine you are selling your vote for 50 shillings. Will that person even help you? If he can bribe with 50 shillings, what does that person say about how he thinks about you? So we need to have a paradigm shift, and we need to have a radical surgery of the political scene that we have. Because like I said, we just elect clowns. And that is entirely on the voter. So if you elect a clown, the circus is what you're going to be entertaining. You see, the sad reality is that yesterday, for example, in Matungo, Malala wants to become governor. So he has to show ANC what I have. You see, ANC for Kenya, they are trying to form an alliance. So they have to show what they have. So the sad reality about Kenyan politics is that our parties are not institutions. They have no ideas or policies. Those who subscribe to certain parties because of a party leader. So when the party leader decides, you know what, I'm done with this, I'm going to this party, they will move. So we need to move from that. So that if I identify myself, for example, let's say with party X, it is because of the ideas or the ideals of party X. Even if someone moves away from party X and the ideals are the same, I stick to them. But sadly, we try to please these purported kingpins. And that is the reality. the moment you want to put a region to be controlled by a certain person, there's no one person will control the minds of every single individual. So we need to move from that so that people can be independent. And I say that because our diversity or divergent opinions should not be a cause for alarm. It is the beauty about politics and democracy. So let us embrace divergent opinions, but use persuasion for someone to see what you are seeing on your side.
Dennis, Nordin has spoken about institutions of politics in terms of the political parties, but there's also the legislation. We have electoral laws, and it seems like you pick and choose when to follow, when not to follow. Is it a change of that? Is it enforcing of that? Where do we go wrong when it comes to that?
Thank you very much, Jeff. First of all, I believe that the first area of transformation that we need to see in this nation is that animal called the political party. Everything else has changed in Kenya. We have new laws or thereabout. We had a new constitution 10 years ago. But our political parties are still ancient. They still operate within the means and whims of patriarchy. There is no intra-party democracy. I believe that IBC needs to institute some rules that define intra-party democracy, that there has to be a way of seeing that the candidate is generally accepted by the members of the party and that there has been a nomination criteria. Then that said, therefore, that it means that the issues that the candidate will be forwarding forth will be about the voter. We have to make elections about the voter, not about the principles, not about ethnicizing issues or thereabout. A lot of these guys who have voted, if you ask the voter who is who and what it is that they are being carried about, they won't tell you what they are about. So the first thing that we need to do is make sure that the question of the Kenyan voters saying elections are futile for me on two grounds. Number one, if I cast a vote, it will not matter because the election is rigged. Number two, it's not about me. I am hungry now. So we need to make sure that elections are about the voter so that we don't introduce the second issue that I'm about to say, and that is voter fatigue. We have more elections in Kenya, more than we even get to eat. Every day you're about to get your plate of githeri, you hear there's 7 by-elections thereabout. There has to be a way that we make sure that we don't experience voter fatigue. And as I said, is that it's going to compound on the issue of voter apathy. Kenyans feel that there are too many elections, there's too much campaigning, all this is futile, and that the leadership is not listening to our cry. And thereabout, what they will do is that they will ignore a critical process into democratizing the space and into ensuring that they put somebody there who will define and redefine policies that are important for their socio-economic growth. The third thing that we need to do is to make sure that the police disenfranchise themselves from politics and from politicians. The office of the Inspector General of Police is an independent office, and he must save us from this thing that the police force looks like it's politically mobilized. And we are pleading with you, our dear IG, give us that sense of security. Number 4, make sure that the polling stations are secure for our women. They are secure for our men. We saw weapons being brandished in polling stations, guns and knives. Somebody was knifed, goons carrying sticks. It means that the area that should be the nucleus of us exercising democracy is one of the most violent areas in the nation, that I can be stabbed, that I can be shot, and therefore that will work as a suppression tactic to those who feel vulnerable. So I think, Jeff, that we need a complete overhaul of the mentality. We have the laws, but again, as the state has ignored Constitution 2010, anything that called law in this Kenya looks like it has been suspended. We are not even sure whether we have laws in this country anymore. Anybody can operate at whatever level, do whatever thing they think. Even some of these guys that are calling themselves principals are looking for some type of ordination or some type of seconding by the president. They are surrounding him. They are not even allowing him to work. Thereabout. Instead of going to the people and selling their serras, they are busy knocking and knocking and knocking in State House and forgetting that the one who should decide the political fate of this country, the leadership fate of this country, is Wanjiku. And I'm going to say again, elections are becoming more about the grandeur things. No wonder BBI is about creating positions on the top. And Wanjiku, who is hungry, Wanjiku, who is destitute, Wanjiku, who is sick, is consistently being ignored by a system that doesn't care whether she lives or dies. And it's unfortunate.
Hesbon, from where we stand, because you've spoken about voter apathy and you said that it's also induced by the politicians in terms of the tactics they used. But as we move closer to what will be a referendum and after that a general election, how do we get voters to actually go out and understand that their vote counts with the pictures and images and videos that we've seen from yesterday?
You know, Jeff, let me say a few things, but before, let me just say that when we mention BBI and say that politicians want to create positions for themselves, it's a grandeur thing and all that, we are deceiving Kenyans. Because there is no way you can say that people are creating positions for themselves and it is about them when they are devolving more funds to the counties, when they're making the ward the basic unit of development. So we need to let the public understand things as they are. Then number two, irrespective of how we want to look at all this, there are four critical things in a democracy. One is a multiplicity of political parties. That is why it is called a multi-party democracy. Number two is a plural media. And we have these two in Kenya. We have these two. I mean, our media is one of the most vibrant media in Africa. And then our political parties are good political parties. It is the people who head these political parties who sometimes have issues, or they are overzealous supporters. But there are two other critical things, because I talked of four. So the third one is an electoral system that is just. So if you talk about the voter having his vote count, whether it is a referendum or a general election, it is a just electoral system that will give the voter that power, nothing else. Why? Because in a multi-party democracy, power is given, but for a limited period of time. And if the voter is giving that power in a just electoral system, it will be very clear that the only way to get that power is from the voter. And whoever is given that power will serve the voter for two simple reasons. One, the voter has the power. Number two, if he wants to continue serving, he will come back to the voter for power. And we lack electoral justice in this country. And I hope that should be the conversation going forward. And then number four, and the last one, which is the most important and people don't talk about it, is a vibrant and self-regenerating civil society. We know in all democracies, what the establishment will do is if you come out strongly to fight for the civic causes of the public, they will co-opt you. So the civil society has to self-regenerate. So we need these last two, a just electoral system and a vibrant civil society that will do that which is in the interest of the public, and the media will cover because if it is of public interest. And by doing that, I think they will call political leaders into action. They will single out political parties that are not serving the interest of the common mwananchi. They will single out the injustices within political parties. They will say the truth about the provisions that the politicians are making. And I think by having those four key things, we will not be having a problem of the youth being hoodwinked. You know, we have political parties which are good, but when they go out, they don't want to give the public an opportunity to listen to them. And that's why on the day of the election, they go with millions. Why go with millions? You had a chance to tell people what you have to offer. You don't have to bribe them. And it is that bribing that no one is calling out. It is that political chaos, you know, of addressing nothing that no one is calling out. And you need an electoral justice system, an electoral system that is just, and a vibrant and self-regenerating civil society.
No, Dean, when you talk about electoral systems, right at the front of that and leading that particular, championing that particular cause, is IBC. IBC is there making sure that everything is ready in terms of moving forward with any electoral process. As of now, we have what seems like a crippled commission. From funding to, the structure within it, it doesn't inspire too much confidence. Do you think that's by design or by default? Because it didn't happen yesterday. It's been that way for a while.
Anything in politics is not a coincidence, it's planned. You see, the problem we have with IBC, it has had so many challenges. And as we know, it's going to be either they'll disband it or they'll form a new commission. Now, in getting new commissioners for IBC, for example, what we need this time, we need to look at the leadership and integrity. That threshold is the most, and integrity is the most crucial part. Because if the commission is led by someone with integrity, and the commissioners have integrity, then it will bring about confidence to the voter. Now, sadly, for us to move away from what we saw yesterday, there needs to be an example. First and foremost, all the big parties yesterday misbehaved. Let us be honest. All of them. All their members from the, be it ODM, UDA, be it Jubilee, be it whatever, all of them misbehaved. So what we need to set an example so that this doesn't happen. There need to be investigations. We need to have convictions. If they are prima facie evidence, and people need to be charged. So that this never happens again. Because if you let this happen, people will say, oh, by the way, like people are saying, it started in Kibra. I didn't start in Kibra. This thing started way back. Because this is more or less our politics. Where someone takes this as my territory, campaigns there, but will never allow you to come and campaign. And that is what we need to move away from. So we need to set an example. And it should be done like yesterday, where there should be investigations, and anyone found capable should be arrested and they should be convicted if there is enough evidence, right? So that we move away from this and you put a deterrence so that people campaign and they carry out themselves knowing that if I go against the offenses, Election Offences Act, then they'll be held to pay. Because it talks about an imprisonment of 5 years. That has never happened. You know, we need to stop being a lawless. We are more or less like a lawless country. Yesterday was like a jungle. Survival for the fittest. I have more guns than you, so I will beat you up. And we need to move away from that. Because that means it's no longer about the Kenyan. It's more or less about I and my party leader. And that is rubbish, according to me. We need to move away from serving your so-called demigod and decide to serve the citizens. Because the moment you serve a purported kingpin, your loyalty is with him or her, but not the people. And that is what we need to move away from.
There's also been an aspect of regionalization in terms of the parties. We've seen what has happened in the coast region. Yeah. Dennis, very quickly on this one as well, because what's been spoken about is the fact that, yes, every political party should have a national outlook, but even with the parties that are in existence, they always have a regional power base. Now the coastal province is saying we've been out of this for quite a while. We want to move forward in that direction. Is that better for Kenyan democracy in terms of parties getting their regional power bases and then coming to the fore, or is that making democracy worse as we move forward?
Thank you very much, Jeff. Whenever you see a regional party forming, it means that that region has been alienated mostly through what it is that we call market democracy. So if you look at the coastal region has suffered a major blow, perhaps through some errant policies around the SGR. They have suffered economically. They are, the transportation, the whatever industry that there is, has gravely suffered. And what has happened is that most the parties that are called to have a national look, which ODM is not one of them, I don't even think Jubilee is one of them, have not had the capacity or the will to resolve or contest what ails economically the coastal region. And therefore, naturally, they want to feel like we need to move out of a purported big vehicle to a smaller vehicle that will be able to take care of our interest. But that is also worrying because we have a devolution. So you need to ask yourself, how come the MCAs or the county governments that are quite a number in the coastal province are not able to answer and resolve the question of market democracy? They are not able to contest against policies that have clawed back on the economy of the coastal province. And all this comes to politicians who have been inoculated against listening to their people on the ground. It is a dangerous move, Jeff, But what can you do when most of the political parties, I think other than my political party, which is Agano and UDA, that are bringing in an approach that is national. But the rest of the other political parties are domiciled either ethnically or regionally, but they are unable to answer to the economic question of Wanjiku. Mombasa, you can hear, I think, I'm not sure which media house did a documentary on the issues, the grave economic and commercial issues that the coast region as a whole has sunk through. And yet, with all their governors, with all their county governments, with all their money, there hasn't been the capability to be able to prosecute or nip on the bud that region from going down. And I think what politicians are doing, they are taking advantage and blaming ODM and saying you haven't been able to answer our issues. But also at some point the handshake collapsed its ability to negotiate with the government on the issues that are bedeviling Mombasa. And that's the reason why you're seeing the marriage of ODM and Mombasa and the region, you know, scuttling itself. Jeff, we have laws, I think 5 critical acts that govern the electoral processes under the COK 2010. We are not short of laws. We are short of political goodwill. We are short of politicians that think of Wanjiku first. And they only remember Wanjiku and the youth when we're about to campaign, when they are selling their so-called BBIs and whatever it is. But a party that listens to the people, a party that is cognizant of the consistent suffering of Wanjiku is what is required. And I'm
Dennis,
going to say
Dennis, I'll have to cut you short there because we'll have to take an early break on
Thank
this
you,
one.
sir.
And I know, Dennis, you are a passionate orator. You can go on and on. But unfortunately, we have to have an early end to this particular segment of the newspaper review at this particular point in time. We'll have you back, of course, to continue on that. Dennis Tumbi, governance and security expert, thank you for your time. I'm in studio as well, Hesbon Awela. He's a media and political communications expert. I can see you raising your hands.
Rejoin that.
We shall rejoin it on the next round. And Nordin Kagai as well, a lawyer. Thanks for making time as well. No, they'll come back and rejoin on that. I draw the curtains right there. But it's a Hangout Friday. We have a DJ in the house. We're jumping into the kitchen as well. Don't go too far. This is KTT4 TV.
Let me ask you, he's an India guy.